Dear viewers, this story is about a young nurse choosing a man in a wheelchair. Everyone said she had lost her mind. But when the truth came out at their wedding, the world stopped mocking and started clapping. Annika stepped onto the dusty road, clutching her old bag tightly. The morning sun burned fiercely, yet her shift at the rural clinic was just beginning. Every morning was the same struggle, 5 miles by foot to the clinic, another 5 back home at night. As she walked, hunger gnawed at her stomach. She ate once a day, not by choice, but necessity. But today was harder. Her hands shook slightly from exhaustion. Yet as always, her gentle smile appeared when the clinic came into view. Inside, patients already waited anxiously. "Nurse Annika is here," whispered a woman holding a crying child, relief in her voice. Annika moved swiftly, soothing, bandaging, comforting, hiding her own pain beneath kindness. During a short break, her friend Essie came close, noticing her tired eyes. "Annika, you give everything away. What about you?" Annika's eyes softened, brimming with quiet tears. "I don't need much, Essie. Not money, not fame. Just someone whose eyes don't pass through me like I'm invisible." Essie squeezed her hand gently. "You deserve more than just being seen. You deserve to be cherished." Annika looked away, heart heavy. She had learned love was a luxury, reserved for those with wealth or beauty, not struggling nurses in worn shoes. Suddenly, a patient cried out, drawing her attention. Without another word, Annika rushed back, leaving behind her own sorrow. But as she moved between the patients, smiling through pain, someone quietly watched from the doorway. A silent man in a wheelchair, his dark eyes fixed on her. He saw what others missed, the gentle tremble of her tired hands, the hidden sadness behind her warm smile. And in that silent glance, unknown to Annika, something began, something that would change both their lives forever. The clinic door creaked open, breaking the silence of a slow afternoon. Annika looked up from sterilizing instruments and saw a man in a wheelchair rolling himself forward, his expression calm yet distant. "Good afternoon," he greeted softly, his voice low and well-spoken. His eyes, deep and guarded, avoided meeting hers fully. "Good afternoon, sir," Annika responded warmly, stepping closer. "How can I help you today?" He glanced briefly at his arm. Just a small cut, nothing serious. Annika knelt beside him gently, noticing how cleanly dressed he was despite his humble wheelchair. His cologne was mild, unlike most patients she saw. Carefully, she cleaned his wound, applying ointment before wrapping it neatly. "You're very gentle," he murmured, breaking the silence. His words felt like whispers from a guarded heart. Annika smiled faintly. "Everyone deserves kindness, sir." "Tajiri," he corrected softly. "Please call me Tajiri." She nodded, sensing layers behind his quiet demeanor. After finishing, she stood back, noticing his eyes still avoiding direct contact. "Done," she said. "Come again if you need anything." Tajiri looked up finally, his gaze thoughtful. "Thank you, Nurse Annika." He rolled away quietly, leaving her curious. There was something about him, a quiet strength masking hidden scars. She watched as he disappeared down the dusty road, questions lingering. Exactly 1 week later, the clinic door opened again. It was Tajiri, sitting quietly in his wheelchair, waiting patiently. Annika approached him, concerned. "Tajiri, are you hurt again?" she asked gently. He hesitated, glancing away, his voice almost a whisper. "No, nurse, I just wanted to make sure it healed correctly." She glanced at the perfectly healed wound, then back at him, noticing something in his eyes, a quiet plea for understanding, or perhaps something deeper. Unspoken words hung between them, marking the start of something neither had yet understood. Days passed, and Tajiri returned to the clinic regularly, always with small reasons. A headache, another small scratch. Annika never questioned his visits, quietly enjoying the comfort of his presence. One afternoon, as Tajiri rolled away after another brief checkup, Nurse Essie approached Annika sharply. "That man again? He can't even stand. What's he doing here every week?" she whispered loudly. eyes narrowed with suspicion. Annika glanced toward Tajiri's retreating figure, feeling oddly defensive. "He's a patient, Essie. Everyone deserves our care." Essie shook her head skeptically. "You better be careful, Annika. People are talking." But despite Essie's warnings, Annika found herself increasingly awaiting Tajiri's quiet visits. Each afternoon became softer when he was around. They talked gently, never once touching painful subjects. Their conversations filled the clinic's empty spaces, drifting to birds, books, or tea. One rainy day, as droplets tapped rhythmically on the clinic roof, Tajiri quietly asked, "Do you ever wish you could fly away, Annika? Just leave everything behind?" She looked at him softly, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But then, who would stay to care for those left behind?" He smiled faintly, a rare openness shining briefly in his eyes. "That's the kindness that makes you special." As weeks passed, gossip intensified. Nurses whispered louder, patients exchanged knowing looks. Annika endured each quiet insult with dignity, silently bearing the burden. One evening, Tajiri overheard a harsh whisper. "Poor nurse, wasting her time with a cripple. What future could they have?" He paused, his fists clenching painfully around the wheels of his chair. Annika saw his hurt clearly for the first time. Quietly, she stepped close, her voice trembling but firm. "Tajiri," she said gently, "don't listen. They only speak what their hearts lack." He met her gaze, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Why do you defend me?" "Because," Annika replied softly, her voice breaking slightly, "you remind me that kindness isn't weakness, and neither are you." At that moment, unseen by both, their bond deepened, setting their hearts toward a future neither expected. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispering through village streets, each word sharper than the last. One evening, as Annika returned home exhausted, her landlord blocked her path, arms crossed judgmentally. "A nurse like you, running after a crippled man," he scoffed loudly. "What future could possibly come from that?" Annika stiffened, trying to maintain composure. "Kindness isn't a crime, sir." The landlord laughed bitterly. "Kindness won't pay your rent or fill your stomach. Wake up, Annika." Later, her aunt visited unexpectedly, eyes narrowed with disapproval. "You disappoint me, Annika," her aunt began harshly. "A man without legs, without a house, without any future? Are you blind, child?" Annika's eyes filled with quiet defiance. "Tajiri may not walk, Auntie, but he treats me with respect. That matters." Her aunt shook her head fiercely. "Respect can't feed you or protect you. Stop throwing your future away." Yet, as the days passed, their words haunted Annika. Quiet doubts crept into her heart, silently questioning the truth she desperately wanted to hold on to. One afternoon, as Tajiri approached the clinic slowly, he overheard cruel whispers from the villagers nearby. "A cripple pretending love? He can't even stand beside her," a voice mocked sharply, followed by heartless laughter. Pain flashed across Tajiri's eyes, deeper than words could express. He turned his chair silently and vanished, leaving no trace. Days stretched slowly into a week. Annika waited, heart aching, eyes searching constantly for his gentle presence. Each passing day deepened her fears. Unable to bear the silence anymore, she sat beneath the old clinic tree, staring toward the empty road. Her voice trembled softly into the evening air. "You don't have to walk to be seen," she whispered tearfully, eyes blurred. "I already saw you." Her words floated gently into the lonely night, hoping somehow he'd hear, somehow he'd know. Early morning brought shocking news. Tajiri had collapsed outside his home. Neighbors, indifferent, passed by without stopping. Hearing the news, Annika's heart nearly stopped. Without hesitation, she rushed from the clinic, running barefoot down dusty paths, fear driving every step. Arriving breathless, she found Tajiri on the ground, his body trembling violently, eyes closed in pain, face burning with fever. "Help me," she pleaded desperately to passing neighbors, who coldly looked away. Alone, she knelt, gently cradling his head. "I'm here, Tajiri," she whispered urgently, tears filling her eyes. "You're not alone." Using every coin from her savings, she hired a taxi, bringing him to the nearest hospital. Inside the sterile room, she stayed by his side, carefully wiping sweat from his forehead, giving him water drop by drop. Hours passed. Late into the night, his eyes fluttered weakly open, meeting hers briefly, confusion clouding his gaze. "Annika," he breathed hoarsely, voice weak and shaking. Why do you keep coming back?" Her fingers brushed his hand tenderly, voice breaking with raw emotion. "Because you're the only one who never looked at me like I was broken." Tajiri's eyes filled slowly with tears, his weak fingers gripping hers gently, holding on as if his life depended upon her touch alone. "You deserve more," he whispered, pain heavy in his voice. She shook her head softly, tears streaming unchecked down her cheeks. "What I deserve is someone who sees me clearly, and that's you." He closed his eyes, comforted by her warmth, strength returning slowly as her presence soothed him. When morning came, doctors praised Annika's quick action. "You saved his life," they told her gently. But as she returned home exhausted, her landlord confronted her once again. "You're choosing suffering over sense," he barked, eyes filled with disdain. Annika paused, her exhausted eyes steady with determination. "Suffering isn't caring for someone who deserves it," she replied softly, yet strongly. "Suffering is living among hearts too cold to see kindness." As she walked away, her heart felt clearer than ever. She had made her choice, one she knew she'd never regret. Annika stepped quietly into the clinic, heart heavy from a sleepless night at Tajiri's bedside. But as she entered, she met her supervisor's cold glare. "Annika, my office now!" he demanded sharply. Inside, his voice cut harshly. "You missed your shift yesterday. Patients needed you. Care to explain?" "I'm sorry," Annika said softly, eyes downcast. "A patient collapsed. He needed urgent help. You chose a crippled stranger over your responsibility here?" he snapped. "One more mistake, Annika, and you're gone." Her stomach twisted painfully. Losing her job meant losing everything. Rent was due, and she had spent her last savings on Tajiri's care. That evening, exhausted, she confided quietly to Essie, but her friend shook her head, concern mixed with frustration. "Annika, listen carefully," Essie urged. "Love won't pay your salary or fill your stomach. Think about yourself for once." Annika's eyes filled with quiet tears. "If I don't help him, who will?" Essie sighed, squeezing her hand. "I'm worried for you. People will let you drown, Annika." Doubt whispered painfully in her mind. Had kindness become her greatest mistake? Early the next morning, a firm knock startled Annika. She opened the door slowly, fearing her landlord's angry face. Instead, he smiled awkwardly, handing her a receipt. "Your rent's paid, Annika. 6 months up front." She stared at him, bewildered. "But who paid?" He shrugged, amused. He didn't leave a name, just said, "She'll know when the time comes." Speechless, Annika sat down heavily, heart pounding. Who could it be? At work, another surprise awaited. A stranger had dropped off a neatly wrapped box. Inside, brand new nursing shoes. Comfortable, expensive, exactly her size. Essie watched closely, suspicious. Who sends shoes to a random nurse? Annika shook her head slowly, heart racing in confusion. "I honestly don't know." Days later, a wealthy patient she'd treated privately sent a generous tip. She stared at the envelope, stunned again. The generosity was overwhelming, each kindness easing burdens she carried alone. Yet she remained puzzled, heart full of questions. Who was behind these gifts? Her mind briefly wandered to Tajiri, but she dismissed the thought immediately. Tajiri had nothing. He was barely surviving himself. Quietly, Annika whispered to herself, eyes glistening softly, "Whoever you are, thank you." Unknown to her, hidden kindness was rewriting her story, one gift at a time. Moonlight bathed the small clinic yard in gentle silver hues. Under the old tree, Annika sat quietly beside Tajiri, enjoying a rare, peaceful moment. Tajiri cleared his throat softly, eyes reflecting deep uncertainty. He reached slowly into his pocket, pulling out a small, humble ring. Anika's breath caught, eyes widening. Tajiri? He lifted his gaze, meeting her eyes, voice shaking but sincere. Anika, I have no legs to stand beside you, no palace to shelter you, no gold to adorn you. But I promise, you'll never feel alone again. Will you walk this road beside me? Despite everything? Tajiri, she whispered, voice breaking, you've already given me something more precious than riches. He hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. Are you sure, Anika? I don't want your pity. No, she interrupted gently, placing her hand tenderly upon his. It's not pity. You made me feel seen, loved, valued. I don't need anything else. With trembling fingers, he slipped the ring onto her finger, his voice barely audible, yet filled with profound gratitude. Thank you for seeing the man behind this chair. Through tears of joy, she smiled, leaning closer, her voice filled with quiet determination. Always, Tajiri! Together! Under the silent watch of the moon, two hearts whispered promises stronger than the world's doubts. Wedding preparations began quietly. A small ceremony planned in the humble village church, nothing extravagant, just simple vows exchanged between two misunderstood souls. Yet whispers quickly spread again. Villagers mocked, loudly shaking heads in disbelief. A nurse marrying a cripple, a woman sneered openly. She's ruining her life. On their wedding day, Anika dressed simply, heart nervous yet hopeful. But as dawn broke, something unimaginable happened. Luxurious black vehicles like those only seen on television lined village roads. Strangers stepped out elegantly, setting up decorations, cameras, flowers blooming from every corner. The villagers watched, stunned into silence. Designers hurried to Anika's small room, transforming her into a princess. Media crews filmed, capturing every astonished face, every whispered disbelief. Anika's heartbeat quickened. Who arranged all this? She asked, overwhelmed. A smiling assistant replied mysteriously, someone who believes true love deserves celebrating. Anika stood trembling at the church entrance, whispers dying suddenly. At the altar stood Tajiri, not seated in his wheelchair but standing upright, slowly, carefully balanced on hidden prosthetics. Gasps echoed through the church. Mockery dissolved into silent awe. Tajiri stepped forward, eyes locked tenderly onto hers, every careful step filled with courage and love. Villagers froze, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Tears flowed openly down Anika's cheeks as Tajiri finally reached her side, voice shaking but proud. I wanted to stand today, he began softly, eyes glistening. Not to prove them wrong, but to honor the woman who believed I could. Anika sobbed gently, overcome. Tajiri, you never had to stand for me. As the celebration reached its peak, Tajiri stepped toward the microphone, the joyful crowd falling silent, anticipating his words. He stood tall, steadying himself carefully, eyes calm yet filled with hidden emotion. My friends, he began softly, voice rich and clear. I came to your village with nothing, but not because I had nothing. The crowd murmured, curiosity filling their gazes. I came here broken, searching for something no money could buy, healing. I wanted to find just one soul who'd choose me not for what I possessed, but simply for who I am. He paused, eyes gently turning to Anika, whose tear-filled gaze never left his. Anika, you became my strength, seeing worth beyond my wheelchair. You taught me what real healing feels like. Taking a deep breath, Tajiri continued firmly. But I have something to reveal. The audience leaned forward, hearts racing. My name is Tajiri Abara, founder of Meditech Global. My company designs advanced prosthetics to help millions walk again. Gasps rippled through the stunned crowd. He smiled gently. After losing my legs in an accident, I tested our newest prosthetics secretly, seeking a place where kindness ruled, not wealth or pity.
I needed a true measure of my own worth.
The silence deepened, every eye wide with amazement. You gave me that measure, Anika. You chose to love without knowing who I truly was. Your kindness became my reason to stand again, not just physically, but in life itself. Slowly, Tajiri lifted the hem of his trousers, revealing sleek, advanced, prosthetic limbs. Astonishment filled the crowd before erupting into overwhelming applause and cheers. Amid the joyful chaos, Anika stood speechless, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her quiet belief had unknowingly healed a broken man, restoring far more than legs. It restored his spirit. That night, beneath soft moonlight, Anika sat quietly beside Tajiri. The village celebrations had ended, leaving them peacefully alone. Her hand gently traced his palm, their silence comfortable, yet filled with quiet thoughts. She finally whispered, voice trembling gently, "Tajiri, why didn't you ever tell me?" He smiled softly, eyes warm with sincerity. "Because you never asked what I had, Anika. You only cared who I was." She leaned into him, breathing deeply, emotions swirling gently within. "You were always enough, Tajiri, exactly as you were." He gently stroked her hair, voice quiet but certain. "Your belief healed wounds far deeper than broken limbs. You gave me a reason to stand, not because you wanted me whole, but because you loved me broken." She raised tear-filled eyes, meeting his steady gaze. "I never saw you as broken. I saw strength no wheelchair could hide." He smiled tenderly, voice filled with gratitude and quiet peace. "And that's how I knew I could stand, because you stayed." Under the silent stars, hearts connected deeper than words could ever explain. They had found true strength, not in perfection, not in riches, but simply in choosing to love beyond what eyes could see. My sweet besties, what touched your heart most in this story? Did it remind you of someone you once believed in? Please tell me in the comments. I love reading your kind thoughts. And if this story warmed your soul, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that honor love, hope, and second chances.